Welcome back to another episode of First Light, where we dive deep into the stories of resilience, transformation, and leadership. Today we have an incredibly inspiring guest, Cameron Fathauer. Cameron is a personal injury attorney at Chad Law, specializing in traumatic brain injury, medical malpractice, and wrongful death cases. But what makes his journey remarkable is that he isn't just an advocate, he's a survivor. In 2015, Cameron's life changed forever when he was struck by a car as a pedestrian, suffering a severe traumatic brain injury. His road to recovery wasn't just physical, it was deeply personal, shaping his purpose and leading him to the legal profession. Today, he not only fights for those who face similar hardships, but also leads a nonprofit, Voice of TBI, and has authored a powerful memoir, Saving the Subject, How I Found You When I Almost Lost Me. Cameron, welcome to First Light. Cameron, I want to start off by thank you for being on First Light with me today and being here live in the studio. But for those who may not know you, Cameron, tell us a little bit about who you are, and then what I want you to do is take us back to 2015. I know, you were in a severe accident where you sustained a traumatic brain injury, and that really kind of changed the trajectory of your life. So we're going to spend some time talking about that today.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. I'm grateful to be here, and there were some crazy travel issues for me to get here, but I'm thankful to be here in person and thankful for what you do here on this podcast. And so my name is Cameron Fathauer. I'm an attorney in Indiana and Kentucky. And yeah, as Chris mentioned, I had a serious traumatic brain injury that totally changed my life from seminary to law school, and I look forward to talking about that with you all today.
All right, well, let's go back to 2015.
Yep.
I know you were a pedestrian and struck by a car.
Yep.
And for us personal injury attorneys, obviously we've had a lot of clients that have underwent some serious injuries, but for you to actually have sustained it yourself and been there. So take us back to 2015 and tell us about what happened.
Yep. So I was in my senior year of high school. It was September 18th, 2015, and it was actually that day I gave my last presentation in preparation for my senior project, which was going to be a Christian apologetics conference with some local pastors in Columbus, Indiana, where I'm from, and the dean of the college I was about to attend. And I was giving these presentations every week outside the high school, and this was the last one we had planned, and it was on epistemological explanations, which epistemology is the study of knowledge, and so how we can know what we know to be true. And so I gave this presentation twice during both lunch hours, and we had max turnout of around 50 students in total. Great turnout. And then 6 hours later, I'm on my longboard, which is a skateboard for those of you that don't know. It's just longer, a longboard, and just outside my parents' driveway, hit by a speeding Lexus, immediately enter into a coma. Head shattered the windshield of the Lexus, dented the rooftop, and one of my shoes was found 60 feet up in a tree a few weeks later, just showing the gravitas of the impact. Immediately in a coma, I laid there. Thankfully, I landed on the grass. There was by providence, there was a nurse walking her dog, and so she was able to come to my aid quickly. And I was lifelined via helicopter from Columbus, Indiana, to IU Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I was diagnosed with the highest level of severe diffuse axonal brain injury down to my brainstem. Remained in a unmedicated coma for the next 3 weeks or so. They were just waiting for me to wake up. Doctors said I'd be a vegetable the rest of my life, or if I did wake up, I'd have the mental capacity of a young child, a 6-year-old. But by God's grace, I did wake up from the coma and entered into a whole new world, a world that didn't make sense. I wasn't able to do the things I used to be able to do. I couldn't think. I didn't feel the way I used to feel. And I couldn't even recall the name of my fiancée, who I had proposed to just a month before the accident. So I was only 17 years old, and I did ask a woman to marry me. And she was a woman. She was 19. So, and she said yes. And then a month later, Chelsea is, living out the marriage vows before it even starts. She's, and that's just one of the craziest parts of the whole story, is that she would stick with me through all of this. And so I give her so much credit and praise for my recovery and God's providence to give her to me to get me through all of this, and I really couldn't have done it without her. But so having to relearn her name and relearn, we really did have to fall in love again. There's a whole romance element to the story that I don't talk about in depth as much, but it's really true that we love got us through all this. And so I got through rehab. I did physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all the therapies you can think of in Indianapolis at the Rehabilitation Hospital of Indiana. Great service, but my physical recovery progressed rapidly. So this was part of what the media was donning as my miraculous recovery, is the external. Physical recovery just progressed rapidly, and so I went from a wheelchair to a walker in about a week, from a walker to a gait belt, which is that belt they use to support someone who's, having mobility issues, in a month, and from the gait belt to a high school diploma at the end of the year. So I did end up graduating high school a semester early, this is kind of an aside, but high school really meant a lot to me. And because I graduated in December of 2015, I'm going to be going to the class of 2015's 10-year, reunion here in a few months. So I might actually end up going to both. But I said that to someone else, and they're like, "Oh, you just want to party." It's like, well, to me, I really do feel like I have a lack of closure with the class of 2015 because these were people I looked up to, and I had the accident, and I don't remember saying goodbye to people. And so, again, that was an aside. And so Chelsea and I did get married in 2016, the day we planned to get married, March 2016. But before that, my parents, which is another crazy thing, they dropped off their freshly brain-injured son, who just lost a third of his skull after being hit by a speeding vehicle, and then having 2 brain surgeries in Louisville, Kentucky, on his own, starting college at the Southern Baptist Seminary there in Louisville. And I was in pursuit of ministry. That was my goal, and to become a preacher of some sort. And but the accident and the subsequent marriage, Chelsea wanted me to get a lawyer for my injury case. And this is how I met Matthew Shad in New Albany, Indiana. Matt's got a great reputation with working with traumatic brain injury clients and getting great results with cases. And so Chelsea saw that when she was doing the research, and we connected like right away. And he just saw something in me and Chelsea, and just was really interested, and took us out for dinner that day. And that's kind of what got me going into the legal direction. And I could keep going, but I want to make sure you can. Well, you have
questions. Fortunately, I've got to know you and talk to you a lot and know some of your story. But there's a lot of people who haven't, and so obviously, let's talk about. There's so many things that you unpacked there that I want to talk about.
There's a lot.
But let's go back to some of those early challenges. You and I have talked a lot about how AI is changing the law, and I know that's going to be a subject for you. But like you said, you come out of this coma to a woman who you had proposed to and didn't even know who she was. So let's talk about some of those early challenges and the things that you did. I know faith is a big part of who you are, and obviously you were headed down that path to seminary. But what were some of those things that you did to really help you to overcome those physical and more importantly, I guess, those mental challenges that you had in the early days?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I mentioned newspapers and media calling the recovery a miracle and miraculous, and using words like that, and it absolutely was in the external sense. But my internal, the unseen battle was brewing and really getting larger and more difficult over time. And that's the stuff people don't talk about and people don't see. And like a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, is known as the invisible injury, because so much of the difficulty in the recovery is unseen. And it's not even just the mental difficulty of maybe like pronouncing things or recalling events in the past or even words. We all have those moments where we can't think of the word. It's like, well, times that by 10 with not just forgetting the word, but forgetting the name of people close to you, forgetting just events or things you've done, interactions you've had with other people. And so just having to push through that stuff and work through that stuff was challenging, as you could imagine. But there's something about suffering that's an opportunity. Like in pushing through the difficulty, you find a new kind of strength that you wouldn't have had but for the suffering. I mean, you've heard the song or the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, it'll only make you stronger if you keep pushing through, if you keep the persistence and the perseverance with the difficulty, and you don't give in to the pressures to succumb to the injury. And I remember when I woke up from that coma, how much peace I felt. Like I really felt like the Lord had a plan for all of this. And so my faith was a crucial part. And it's almost like I mentioned that presentation I did at the high school to show you that I was theologically like motivated and driven. And I had already developed a kind of theology for suffering that prepared me for this moment. So you talk about preparing for a traumatic brain injury, like by eating well, getting good sleep, exercise, like those fundamental, basic things you can do to prepare for any suffering. But most people don't talk about the spiritual side, like the faith side of like preparing your spirit and your heart for whatever comes your way. And this ties into a book that I wrote that was published last August, Saving the Subject and Finding the Human Subject in a World Full of Objects, because I was looking for a subjective identity, a personal identity that no objective happening could take from me. Like this is that sort of mindset, that sort of heart of just like the Apostle Paul is a great example of this, where he was shipwrecked 3 times and he's like, praise the Lord. He goes to prison, he just converts the entire Imperial Guard to Christianity. Like he couldn't be touched. And that sort of mindset of like, God's got me, I can get through this because he's the one working all this out for something better. And so, yeah, like I had all those moments that are very common with people with TBIs, where people are looking at you weird. I mean, I had to wear a helmet for like half a year, where like because I had a bone flap, it was just skin and brain, and my youth pastor went to the hospital and said, I can finally pick his brain, which is a very youth pastor thing to say. But yeah, so I looked weird and I sounded weird. Another kind of miracle with the recovery externally was my vocal cords. So I mentioned that presentation I did at the high school. The Senior Project Apologetics Conference was scheduled for October 31st, 2015. Okay? So that was about a month and a half after the accident. October 31st, 2015 is also, obviously it's Halloween, but it's also known as, in Protestant circles, as the Reformation Day, when Martin Luther historically nailed the 95 Theses on the church in Wittenberg. And so that's why I chose that date. And no one thought I'd go to the conference, let alone speak, but the Lord allowed me to recover, or at least get out of my therapy there in Indianapolis 6 months ahead of schedule. And my dad on October 31st, 2015 walked me up the stage, and I had my helmet on, and I gave my presentation on why you can trust the Bible. I mentioned that because I had a very raspy voice. I sounded like Batman. And it's on YouTube, you can look it up. And I even make that joke in the beginning. I'm like, sorry if you can't understand me, I sound like Batman, and everybody laughs. But I gave that presentation, and that was more people showed up because almost like a Lazarus moment. Like I was almost dead, and here I am doing this, and so that was a cool outreach aspect of that. And so yeah, I've had to go through all of these different ordeals and darkness, but there's definitely more to it than that, more internal issues that I talk a lot about in the book, and I talk about I freely talk about it with other people too.
Yeah, I want to get into the book, but before we get to the book, I do want to talk to you about how, that experience has shaped your ability to advocate for your clients. So many people, when we go to personal injury, maybe they haven't had quite that experience and they don't know what that suffering is like. And so you've had that. So how has that experience shaped your ability to advocate for your clients?
It's a great question, Chris, because it does change the whole paradigm in my relationship, it's not just an occupation for me, it's a vocation. It's a calling. It's something I really feel like I was meant to be doing. And that's just where everything went for me in life. Is I mentioned my wife wanted me to get a lawyer. I met Matthew Shad. We got connected. I got inspired randomly. Just the idea popped in my head to go to law school. And the two big reasons I wanted to go to law school was to help other injured people, but also mainly to get better. Okay, so helping other injured people is definitely an obvious part of why I became a lawyer. But the more subtle personal fact for me was to get better, because the doctor said, Cameron, the hardest things for you are going to be higher level thinking, executive function, just using your brain. So I thought, man, if I could do the law school admission test, I could do anything else. So I spent like 6 months studying for it, got a high enough score to get into a great law school, Indiana University, Maurer School of Law in Bloomington, Indiana. And I'm just saying, I'm going to answer your question, Chris, because it all applies.
Yep.
At the end of my first year of law school, my wife gave birth to our firstborn, Scarlett Jane. At the end of my second year of law school, this is where it gets crazy, my wife gave birth to triplets. So I fathered 4 children in law school, all with the same woman. 4 in law school, and God's grace again, still graduated with my peers. I didn't take like a year off or something. And passed the bar exam, licensed in Indiana and Kentucky, working with the same attorney who worked my case 8 years ago. So I say that because there's something, and I say this without pretension or with all humility. It's just the fact of it. Like because the Lord's allowed me to overcome the things I've overcome and just have a story that's just almost unbelievable. Like the more you learn about it, the more it's like it just keeps getting crazier. And for that reason, it's implicitly an inspiration for clients, for me to work with them and me to listen to them, knowing that we've been through something similar, that we understand each other, and that's just huge. And you can't buy that. You can't replicate that. It's just something uniquely a gift I've been given, not only to get better, but to give back to other people in having gotten better, if that makes sense. And so it implicitly supports clients, but it also supports me because I really enjoy, I've always loved people. I've always been a big people person. So this gives me a basis for advocating for my clients in a way that it's just most other attorneys don't have. And clients feel that, and they experience it. They feel heard, they feel seen, which is just huge. More than just a number, more than just another client, but someone that's accessible, someone that's approachable, someone that's been there. And I'm obviously not perfect at it, but like I normally have a really good interaction and experience with my clients, and because I've been on both sides of the table. And I'm thankful to be here.
Now, you've talked about the book. You wrote a book, Saving the Subject, How I Found You When I Almost Lost Me. And I have a copy that you gave me, which I appreciate, an autographed copy as well. But what inspired you to write this book, and what do you hope the readers take from it?
Yeah. Well, I actually sent 3 copies to your office. And I'm thankful you guys have looked over some of it. And yeah, the book was I've always kind of known I was going to write a book sometime, because when I'd share my story with people, they'd be like, oh, you should write a book, or that'd make a cool movie. And over the years, I've just found like the objective merits of my life immaterial. Like, to me, I don't feel like people just need another story about someone overcoming suffering. Okay, like there's a lot of stories out there. I mean, in today's world, we've got access to too much information. There's lots of stories about people overcoming tremendous difficulty. And I didn't really intend to write another one because the inspirational aspect is just implicit in the fact that I, one, wrote a book, and then two, all the other stuff that I've overcome, and I'm thankful to be able to share it. But I wanted to give people something more meaningful and deeper in this book, and hopefully what the book does for people is they don't just see me, but they hopefully mainly see themselves in the book. The book can almost act as a mirror for the reader, and it's a book that's meant to be reread. It's got a lot of depth to it. There's poetry, there's fiction, there's nonfiction, memoir. The sociopaths are in there. Theodore Kaczynski, the Columbine shooters are all in chapter 3. It's just a very unique book, but it's very human in that sense. There aren't. I've had other editors and writers at bigger publishing houses read the book, and they're one of their first responses, "This is a unique book," which is huge in a very, saturated market. But there's just so many books out there, and but the main thing, I guess you could say, the thesis or the goal of the book is to find the human subject in a world full of objects. That sounds academic and philosophical and abstract, and yes, it is. The book was originally kind of geared toward an academic audience, but I changed it to make it more approachable over time as I went through the editing process. But it's important because for me to get better from my injury, I needed to know, I had a brain injury, I needed to know that I was more than my brain injury, that I was more than my productivity, that I was more than how I felt or what I did or what I had in my bank account, like that I was more than this stuff. Like, how am I more than an object? Which in my case meant, how am I not just more than a brain injury? Well, to get over a brain injury, I needed to be more than a brain, more than an object. So finding the human subject in a world full of objects, that's the philosophical kind of framework and thesis for the book, or goal of the book. And so in the book, it's actually something you can read flexibly, which kind of can make people uncomfortable. Like, most people like a linear, and the book is meant to be read linearly, but you can, because some of the topics are more academic, and I explain this in the preface to the book. Because of that, I didn't want to scare people away, especially chapter 1. So I wanted people to be like, okay, if I don't really understand this, they can jump into some other part. And I wanted that kind of flexibility for people, which again is a human thing. Like, none of us live a linear life. Life is not linear. Neither is this book. Although it's meant to be read, the argument and the structure of it is meant to be read linearly, but it's more like each chapter. It's not like 2015 to 2016 to 2017. It's more like themes. It's theme driven. So chapter 1 is an observational philosophical theme. Chapter 2 is a very personal theme. This chapter 2 is called Pen to Pain. It's the chapter I feel like universally most people would enjoy, because it's got my journal entries in there, my struggles with depression, suicidal ideation. It's got some marriage stuff. It's got some cultural criticism, commentary about objectification, and like how we I call it the post-mortem effect, how we don't see people until they're gone. We look at them for what they can give us, but then once they're gone, we're like, oh, wow, look at who they were. And I missed out, or I didn't love them as I should. And David Brooks calls this the resume virtues versus the eulogy virtues. The stuff you show off to get the job versus the stuff people actually care about and remember and talk about at your funeral. And so that's in chapter 2. Then chapter 3 is the theme of obedience, and that gets into the Theodore Kaczynski and Columbine, and so it's thematically driven, but it's all connected. And like I told Chris earlier, it's something it's a book that's meant to be kind of meditated on and like a companion for life almost, that you can kind of keep reading and going back to. One of my attorney friends in Indianapolis read the book, and he wrote a review, and his review was really cool because what he said is, prepare to learn more about yourself than the author, which is a cool thing. Because the book is a personal memoir. It's more like a philosophical, theological memoir because the faith element's there, but it's approachable in a lot of ways. And if you look at my Amazon reviews for Saving the Subject, you'll see everybody has a different experience reading the book, which kind of plays into the subjectivity of it. It's just so cool how the book has just how it turned out to impact people in different ways, and grateful to be able to share it with the world.
Well, you I apologize. That's been one of those. You rebuilt your life after this trauma, and went on to go to law school, get married, now the father of 4, become a lawyer, now an author. So there's people out there who are facing their own battles, whether they're physical challenges, emotional challenges, whether they're having challenges in their professional life. What advice do you give to people who are struggling with any sort of challenges or trauma in their life?
Well, I don't want there's something about, and I kind of touched on this earlier, like, I don't want to just say the same stuff that everybody says, like kind of like, you want to be healthy, drink water, exercise. And it's like, yeah, I know that, but I need, we're looking for something new. We're looking for something more. But sometimes the basics are what you need. And so, and you, Chris, as an attorney, understand it depends. It depends on who we're talking to. So when you're talking a general question, well, it's normal for me to just give a general answer. So I will try to give a nuanced but still general answer to that question. And my first instinct, and the one go-to I have, is to just hold on. And I've actually got a passage. This is the hardcover version. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, and while you got it up there, explain the picture of the cover, because the cover is...
Yeah, so this is... I told Chris and Blake during lunch today, I was like, I wanted to bring the full skull. So I've got a full 3D model, 3D printed model of my skull. They gave it to me after the second brain surgery, the cranioplasty. They gave it to me, and I've used it to show and share my story. But I was like, I don't know how TSA would feel about me having this. It looks like a real human. It is a real, it's just, plastic. And so, yeah, this is a image that shows I lost about a third of the skull due to the collision. And this is actually a smaller version of it. I've actually got a page in the back here that shows the full CT scan. I don't know if you... Yeah, that shows just the magnitude of it. And it's special because Matt Shad wrote... So this is the letter of recommendation he wrote for me when I applied to law school. And he wrote the foreword of the book. So it's kind of like he hugs the book. And Matt and I come from different kind of worldview backgrounds, and so it's special. We've developed a good relationship. But yeah, so to answer your question about advice for people, well, January 30th, 2023 was an important date for me because it was the last date where I really struggled with a suicidal bout, where I really wrestled with a depressive episode in my recovery. And I wrote something down, and I've done this many times before, where I have these struggles and I just take it to the paper, I take it to the pen, and that's why I call it pen to pain, is I'm trying to write at my feelings instead of writing about them. And there's a big difference. It's kind of like, it's almost like preaching to myself. Like instead of like, oh, I feel this way, it's like, no, I should feel this way, or I am going through this, and this is how I should respond to it. So what I wrote on January 30th, 2023 to deal with this last episode I've had was something transformative and resonant with many other people I've shared it with. So I'll just read some of this. This is on page 27. This present suffering truly does not compare to what is to come. You go through the pain, but someday you will not be in pain. You cry, but sometime later you will laugh. But that laugh will go away, and so will those tears. Yes, we get glimpses of the new life to come with our emotional fluctuations. One moment we are in a type of hell, the next a type of heaven. So hold on. Hold on to your kite of a life, where some days it'll fly high, others it will fly low. Some days it'll toss to and fro, others it will not. But regardless of what happens to your kite, the number one task is to keep a strong grip on that string. And maybe that's the right perspective, to hold onto life like a string to a kite, because that's all you can do. Trust him with the weather. So my general advice for people is to just keep pressing on and keep holding on and not giving up on the search for a solution to your problems. But the other answer is, and this plays into subjectivity and personhood, is finding someone else to go. Like for me, having Chelsea was transformative for me, is going through this struggle and then recovery and accomplishments with someone by my side. People put marriage off for much later in life, but man, I'm so thankful I proposed to her as a 17-year-old and that she said yes and that she stuck with me and all that other stuff, because like we can't do this life alone. People need people. And the book is about finding the subject in a world full of, so it comes down to the question, what is man? What is human? What does it mean to be human? And a more kind of modern application in the AI conversation with the themes of the book is to say being human is to have the ability to suffer, but not just suffer, but have the potential to transform. So animals can suffer, but humans can uniquely suffer and overcome and become something stronger, become something better. Animals can't do that. Once they suffer, they're like limited forever. We have this adaptability, this ability to overcome, like the brain, whether you believe in God or not, like the brain, neurologically speaking, has the ability to make new pathways, neuroplasticity, people are aware of that. And so this opportunity for transformation is only there because of suffering. It's only there. Like if we never went through anything hard, we'd never know what it's like to overcome hardship. And so this is why the cross has been such a it's such a perfect symbol of the faith, the Christian faith, because it's a juxtaposition between two realities, loss and victory, pain and strength. And so everybody needs to bear their cross. Life is suffering. And so being human is not just suffering, but it's having the potential to overcome that suffering. So having the ability to overcome suffering is what makes us uniquely human. But the thing about overcoming suffering is it's not an individual enterprise. Like this is a communal effort. Like the potential for transformation that I have is not something I get to have alone. I can't think of another way to phrase that, but I have a unique potential to overcome the difficulties in my life. Yes. But I also have the unique potential to do that with other people, and I can't do that without other people. A huge theme explored in the book is, again, identity, and this is in chapter 3 a lot, and how I can't imagine being myself by myself. Like, who's Cameron Fathauer without Chelsea Fathauer? Who's Cameron Fathauer without Matt Shad? Who's Cameron Fathauer without, Indiana University Maurer School of Law? Like I need other people to be myself. But the key is I'm not my full self in my marriage. Like that's not all me. I'm not just a husband. I'm not just a father. I'm not just a lawyer. I'm not just where is my identity fully? Well, it belongs ultimately, I believe, to a personal God who's above me, who's above all my life. But even if you don't share that kind of perspective, it is true that we all need each other to be ourselves. And so finding a community of people that support you and love you and care for you, which is why churches and places like that are great for that. And so those are my two main encouragements to people is hold on, persevere, and the other, find someone else who can hold on with you and push you to be better.
Yeah, I talk about that a lot on the podcast is, finding your tribe of people. And, recently having done the Atlanta Marathon, one of the big reasons why I was able to achieve my goal and accomplish my goal is because of my training partner.
Oh, yeah.
I had someone who held me accountable, who pushed me, who was there along the process, and then more importantly, ran with me on race day. Mm-hmm. And, when you hit that wall at mile 20 and 21 and 22, and especially in Atlanta, like I can't, climb another one of these hills. I just can't do it. Having him there with me to help push me got me there. So, life's not meant to do alone, and
right.
It's so important to have that. And then also I feel that, we have that duty to share, or to share the message. And the point of this podcast is to share these stories because, we're all facing these challenges, and to let people know that, hey, you can do it too. The way I transformed my life in the last 2 years from where I was to where I am is just a different place. And why wouldn't I want to share that message? Why wouldn't I want to share that with other people to hopefully help other people, inspire other people to transform? And so I appreciate what you've done here with the book, and I know that there's a lot ahead for you as well. And I want to talk to you about that as well, because you're just getting started. You've accomplished, and that sounds crazy. You've done so much already, but you're just getting started. So talk about what's next for you, what you see in the future for what you're going to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. I mean, we talked about this at lunch. You and I and Blake share a very similar kind of like time is of the essence personality, where we just full throttle want to get things done. And I mean, I've accomplished a good amount of things in a very short period of time, and it's kind of reflective of that drive, I guess, to get things done. But it's really cool that I wrote this book and that it was published when it was, because we're entering a new era, and I'm not the only one to say that, and other people are recognizing it with this artificial intelligence and this technology that's just going to be, it's going to be the next, like, invention of the internet, invention of the smartphone. Like, this is a transformative era for the entire world. But I wrote this book just before the AI kind of takeover that's going to be coming. And I'm sensing a calling to be a voice to the issue, or I guess you could say the coming identity crisis that I believe our culture and our world is going to go through in the next 3 to 5 years or so, maybe 10 years, but probably not that long, because this technology is just moving so quick. And what I mean is when I woke up from that coma, I woke up to a world that no longer made sense. I woke up to, like, no longer knowing who I was. I wasn't able to do the things I used to be able to do. I didn't feel the way I used to feel. And other people were comparing me to who I used to be. And the world's about to go through something similar in the next half decade or so, where we're going to be replaced. A lot of jobs are going to be replaced by robots. Machines, they can do way better than I can. They have such tremendous output, more than all of us collectively. ChatGPT, Grok 3, these AI chatbots, they can spit out information, essays, dissertations, just within like seconds or minutes. Like, it's insane, and it's just going to keep getting more powerful. And I'm not an anti-AI person. Some people might think that because of the articles and things I've been posting on my website. But I'm only saying that this identity crisis is, I feel like I've gone through what the culture is going to be going through, seeing that, like, okay, if I can't beat the bot, if I can't beat the robot, and it can outperform me, it can outdo things, then where's my value? Like, how am I more than what I do? Am I more than what I can't do? And that's why I almost feel like this book, and I use this term intentionally, has a kind of prophetic sense of finding the subject in a world of objects, because man, like with the digital age, we already understand objectification. Like, we get that. If you've ever taken a picture of yourself, you've objectified yourself. That is just an object. A picture. I mean, there were like Native American leader Crazy Horse, as he was known, never wanted a picture of himself taken or of his tribe, because he thought it stole part of his soul. That it like, once you took a picture of something, of a human, because it objectifies. That's not fully me. That's not fully you. Sometimes we take a selfie and it looks weird. We're like, I don't look like that, and it's because it's not fully you. But objectification is going to get even more pronounced with AI, and so needing to preserve our humanity and human dignity, I think, is just going to become more culturally urgent as time progresses. And I think I have a unique voice and perspective and story, and now I have a book to address that question of human identity and value in a world of machines.
One thing I forgot to ask, because and I wanted to talk to you about, one of the true heroes of your story you've talked about a lot already is your wife, and how she really supported you and stayed with you through all that you've gone through, and helped to get you to be the person, the man, the husband, the leader, the father that you are today. And so, what a role she's played. But I understand now, from our conversations, now you're supporting her in a big way in this journey that she's going on. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because it is so important. And I think what you're doing and where you're at in life and how you're supporting your wife is truly inspirational as well. Because a lot of times it's about us,
yeah.
And it's all me, and you're realizing and seeing, the role that she's played in your life and what you want to do for her to support her. So talk a little bit about that, because I think it's really just an amazing part of your life.
Yeah, Chris, I'm thankful you brought that up, because a lot of these kind of podcasts or interviews I've done, we don't get to that part, because it's one of those surprise elements of the story that kind of, again, makes it kind of unbelievable, because it's like, how? So Chelsea has wanted to go to medical school since she was, in early grade school. After the accident, she basically went to nursing school to make it easier on us, and so she could provide for us while I went through my recovery. And so she became a NICU nurse, helping with little babies, and she's always had a heart for babies and little kids, and that was something I was very drawn to when I first met her. And so she became a nurse and supported me through law school, through the seminary, and then through law school. And after I got out of law school and passed the bar exam, things became more steady, and I was like, baby, you can go to med school. And she started taking posts. They're called, because when you go to nursing school, it's a completely different route than physician school, med school. So she had to take all these different classes to fit the requirements for med school, and she was doing that. She was actually doing those classes while I was in law school, some of them while I was in my latter years of law school. And she started med school at Indiana University in Indianapolis, which there's a whole background story to that, because I can't really, I don't feel comfortable talking about that right now. I'll probably do it later, because of my relationship with IU right now. But someday I'll bring it up. But she did, IU's a great med school, the largest med school in the country, and she did her first 2 years there, and she commuted. So she commuted from New Albany, Indiana to Indianapolis, which was about an hour and 45 minutes one way, while I was a practicing attorney full-time, all that stuff, with 4 kids under 4. And she drove and did that for 2 years, and then it worked out that she was able to be the first transfer student to U of L med school, which is where she's doing her rotations, which is perfect because it's local and nearby. She doesn't have to drive so much. And rotations, she's got to be there at like 5 a.m. Surgery she's on, now it's 4 a.m. And so that would not have worked if she had to go to Indianapolis. So it's all in the Lord's timing, really. And so she's in her 3rd year of med school and about to do her away rotation. And we don't know where that's going to end up and ultimately where residency is going to take us. But I'm very supportive of her. She supported me through so much, and I feel it's the least I could do to support her through the things she wants to do. And we're still involved parents. We're thankful for my parents and her parents who are nearby, and they help out. They're always there to help. And it's definitely takes a village to raise 4 kids that are like the same age. But it's been very rewarding, and it gets honestly, having multiples is the way to go, because man, it's like we only had 2 pregnancies, but we have 4 kids, and it's like, man, it's hard that first year, or really the first 2.5, 3 years, but once they get out of diapers, once they're able to get a drink on their own or go to the bathroom on their own, like it starts to get more fun, and they get through it all at the same time. Like you get through diapers at the same time, you get through car seats at the same time. It's like a lot of work, but it pays off.
Yeah. The last thing for you is, I know we've talked about the book obviously, but I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to listen to this podcast and truly be inspired by your story and want to learn more. So how can people connect with you if they wanted to reach out to you to learn more? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. Thanks. So I've become, well, this is how it all started for us. I've become more active on LinkedIn, and I don't have a whole lot. Like I see these other people have got like thousands of LinkedIn connections and stuff. I have like 300, but that's okay. And so, yeah, LinkedIn, professional networking site, that'd be cool. But you can also email me at cfathauer@shadlaw.com. You might include that in like a description. And I'm fairly active on my own website, CameronFathauer.com, where I post articles and journal, or just things about my recovery, my family, and faith and philosophy and all that. But yeah, so email and other social media accounts, I'm on those as well. So happy to connect, and would love to discuss these concepts and ideas and things with other people.
Well, Cameron, I want to thank you so much for being with me on First Light, sharing your story and your book with me.
Yep. Thank you, Chris.
Cameron, your journey is nothing short of extraordinary. From overcoming a traumatic brain injury to becoming a powerful advocate in and out of the courtroom, your story is a testament to resilience, purpose, and service. Thank you for sharing your story with us today. It's been an absolute privilege. And to all of you out there, hold on, keep pushing forward, keep finding your purpose in your journey, and always keep shining your light. We'll see you next time on First Light.